reshape tensions across the Middle East and beyond. Reports suggest that Iran has drafted a new proposal for talks with the US, putting forward a bold set of conditions that include an end to ongoing hostilities, lifting of long-standing sanctions, and the removal of naval restrictions that have significantly impacted regional maritime movement. This proposal, if formally accepted and acted upon, could mark one of the most significant diplomatic shifts in recent years between two nations. According to emerging details, Iran's draft proposal is not just a routine diplomatic note. It is being described as a comprehensive peace-oriented framework. At its core, the proposal calls for de-escalation across multiple fronts. First and foremost, it emphasizes an end to military confrontation and indirect warfare dynamics that have persisted for years through proxy conflict and strategic pressure points. Secondly, it directly addresses the economic sanction regime, which has severely impacted Iran's economy, trade, and energy exports. Iran is reportedly pushing for a structured rollback of sanctions in exchange for verifiable commitment on security and regional stability. And third, the proposal highlights maritime tensions, specifically calling for the easing or lifting of naval restrictions that have contributed to repeated standoffs in key waterways. The timing of this draft proposal is being closely analyzed by global observers. In recent months, tensions between Iran and the US have seen cycles of escalation and quite diplomatic back channels. Analysis suggests that both sides may be exploring controlled de-escalations, particularly as global energy markets remain sensitive and regional conflicts continue to strain international security system. For Iran, economic pressure from sanctions has remained a central challenge. Inflation, restricted oil exports, and limited access to global financial system have all contributed to internal economic strain. For the US, maintaining stability in the Gulf region and ensuring uninterrupted energy flows remains a strategic priority. This convergence of interests may explain why diplomatic engagement is once again gaining traction. One of the most critical elements in the proposal is the demand for lifting sanctions. Over the years, sanctions imposed on Iran have targeted banking system, oil exports, defense procurements, and international trade mechanisms. Iran's position, as reflected in the draft, suggests that economic normalization is not just a negotiation point. It is a need for any sustained agreement. However, Washington has historically maintained that sanctions relief must be tied to strict verification mechanism, particularly around nuclear compliance and regional security behavior. This fundamental difference remains one of the biggest hurdles in any potential agreement. Another significant aspect of the proposal involves naval restrictions and maritime security arrangements. The waters of the Gulf region, especially strategic choke points, have seen increased military presence and surveillance over the past several years. Iran's proposal reportedly calls for easing these restrictions, which argues have escalated tensions and increased the risk of confrontation at sea. From the perspective of the international trade, these waters are among the most critical in the world, carrying a significant percentage of global oil shipments. Any disruption or escalation here has direct implications for global energy prices and shipping security. If this proposal moves forward into formal negotiations, the impact will not be limited to just Iran and the United States. Regional actors across the Middle East are likely to respond carefully as shift in Iran-US relations often influence broader geopolitical alignment. Countries in the Gulf region, energy importing nations, and global shipping stakeholders will be watching closely. A de-escalation could reduce tensions in multiple flashpoints, while failure could potentially intensify existing uncertainty. Foreign policy experts suggest that such proposals offer severe multiple purposes. One on hand, they act as diplomatic opening designed to test willingness for dialogue. On the other hand, they also signal internal and external positioning, showing domestic audience and international stakeholders that diplomatic options are still on the table. However, analysis also questions that translating draft proposals into formal agreement is a long and complex process, often involving multiple rounds of negotiations, verification frameworks, and third-party mediations. Despite the significance of the proposal, major challenges remains. Trust deficit between the two nations continues to be high. Previous agreements have seen breakdown, withdrawal, and reimpositions of sanctions, which complicates future negotiation. Additionally, regional security dynamics including allied and adversarial relationships across the Middle East and further complexity. Even if talks begin, the path to a final agreement is expected to be gradual and heavily conditional. To sum it up, Iran's draft proposal to the United States represents a notable diplomatic signal, one that combines call for peace, economic relief, and strategic recalibration. While it does not guarantee immediate breakthroughs, it does not open a window for renewed dialogues at a time when regional stability remains fragile and global stakes remain high. Whether this becomes the foundation of a new agreement or another chapter in a long cycle of negotiations will depend on how both sides respond in the coming weeks. For now, the world watches closely on diplomacy once again takes center stage in one of the most sensitive geopolitical relationships of our time. That's all for now. Stay tuned with us for more updates. Do like, comment and subscribe our channel.